And welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Bubba and the BatFlip, episode 69. We have done our position previews. Now it's time to kind of do our recaps like we did last year. A lot has changed since we've done some of these, not some others, but kind of get our thoughts if, all the drafts that we've been doing, if our thoughts have changed on the process or anything along those lines. We're going to do corner infield tonight, middle infield next week. You can find myself on Twitter at BDintric and my co-host, as always, on Twitter at BatFlipCrazy. Toby, how we doing, man?
We are doing great, Bubba. I just doing a draft right now, and I just took my first hitter in the first round.
I saw your tweet, and I was so excited.
Time. Not only that, but you are growing out a beard, so I think all around it's a win-win type of a day. So
well, you're rubbing off on me. I'm growing out a beard. I've now in my
pocket aces. I saw that.
But I tweeted that one, but then I'm in another one. Kang from our Barf League. Yeah, he does a lot. He does a lot of stuff on Prospect or Baseball 365 on Facebook. So I hang out there once in a while. He's doing, I think I want to say there's at least 10 draft and hold leagues through Fantrax. So similar to what we're doing on NFBC, like literally two catchers. It's almost identical setup. Just it's on Fantrax. And I had the 12th pick out of 15, and I went first round and third round pitchers, but it turned I went pocket aces actually, nothing but pocket aces, and I got Giolito and Buehler, and then I came back with Kyle Tucker and Real Muto in the fourth. And I'm sitting there going, that's the second time I've done this now, and I'm like, but it's so nice.
Feels good. Feels good. It really feels does. Right.
It feels so right. The pitcher things I'm on board with. The more and more I'm starting to grab Real Muto, it makes me wonder if I need to stop, hanging out. No, I'm just kidding. But it makes sense. Like it all makes sense, and I'm not forcing myself to do it. It kind of flows with the draft, it makes me feel better about it. But we'll see how it pans out.
Well, I thought, what'd you get in the other one? It was like Bieber Giolito or something like that.
Yeah,
in the
Bieber
Giolito one. You can't mess with that. Like that's just. Yeah. If I get that once, I'm going to be thrilled. I'm going to be through the roof. So, it's just such a great combo too. Like you get the whip, you get the Ks, you get, it's just fantastic. So.
Well, and it allows for so much more. Like I took Dallas Keuchel later because I don't need the strikeouts as much, but it gets stability. Like the way you shape your team, like you've talked about it before, it starts making things so much different. So it's growing. It's growing on me, but we'll see how it goes. Before we go into corner infield, you've done a handful of drafts. Is there anything that stands out to you so far besides pitching going early?
No, not really. Pitching's going early. I think there are just different ways that people are attacking it, some people are taking it early. Some people are waiting. It's kind of like do you take a couple at the top, 3 at the top or something like that? Or do you really go for a ton of guys in the middle? And I think either option could work out. I just think there's kind of round things that I feel. There's certain rounds I like and I dislike. I really dislike if you want to grab a hitter in the 4th round after the first few. I think it's really rough going. Even in the 5th round, the 4th and 5th round are I'm just not that into them. I think I might just skip them, like in subsequent drafts, just like totally skip over it. Sometimes you're like faced with the options in 4th or 5th round. You're like, I'm gonna draft a hitter right now, but
I'll take 2 8th
round. I don't know how I feel about this. I was joking around with somebody that I was just gonna quit. I was joking around with Brian Sager. I was like, I'm just going to quit in the middle of this round. I'm just going to walk off in the 5th round and be like, I don't want to draft any of these guys. I'm out of here. But we still draft guys, and it's fun. So nothing's jumping out at me, but I'm very interested to see how everything develops over the next, 4 to 7 weeks, that we have left of drafting. I think there's going to be a lot of movement. We're going to have spring training, which we didn't have last year, which I think is going to inform a lot of our breakouts and things like that. Again, focusing on like velocity for pitchers, things of that nature. So it's going to be really fun to actually have that ramp up where hopefully we have access to a little bit of data about who looks like what in spring training, and then we can kind of use our discerning eye to figure out exactly what data to pay attention to. So
yeah, it will be nice to have the spring training data. And like you said, for now, looks like they're reporting in a couple weeks, so we'll be rocking and rolling there. Hopefully things keep going in the right direction. We get some baseball here sooner than later because the KBO is already in spring training. They're already rocking and rolling. So let's get it together, boys. But right now, things are looking good, so that's always promising. Let's get into this corner infield recap. And I'm using the NFBC Draft Champions ADP since January 1st. Like next week, I'll shrink it down to another date. But we're going for the past month, basically, and seeing the January ADPs. And we'll start with the first base position. And, there's the standards when you look at some of these. Like you got Freddie Freeman, you got Cody Bellinger. I don't even want to talk about DJ LeMahieu because I think we've pretty much beaten that one in that he's going super early, but it's the position flexibility. I'll ask, do you have any other thoughts? He's going at pick 34 right now. Like I know he went back to the Yankees, but that's pretty high.
Yeah, I mean, it's really high. He's now with the Yankees, so I don't mind it as much. I mean, the more I think about drafts, I feel like I always get kind of pushed back into my existing thoughts, which is essentially the things that really distinguish players are batting average and stolen bases. And so he's not going to provide the stolen bases, but he's going to provide that batting average in spades, and the runs are going to be enormous as well. So overall, I'm fine with it. Now that we know for sure where he's going to be, I probably won't end up with a ton of them there, but I could see, especially as if LeMahieu falls later into the fourth round or the third round, towards the back end of the third round, how that could make a little bit more sense. And again, the position flexibility is also a big deal. So I don't hate it as much. I still probably won't go there, but we'll see.
Yeah, the flexibility is tremendous, and that's where it's hard to kind of to fight it. But it's like if you're picking, Toby, do you go with DJ or do you go JT Realmuto right there?
For me, I'd probably go Realmuto there. I think. I just think, the difference between Realmuto and, I think there's other catchers that provide some good value. So I haven't been as into JTR this year. I still think he's by far the best catcher, but I've just, I think there's other values you can get later on. But for me, he's better than LeMahieu when you just look at like comprehensively as a player, but and the benefit he gives you a catcher.
So I said DJ's going around pick 34 on average, but as high as 20, which is crazy stuff. Abreu's the fourth one off the board, but then we got this kind of glob, the first one we're going to talk about here, and we know your thoughts on Vladdy, but Vladito's at pick 56, Pete Alonso's at pick 60, Luke Voit, he's kind of fallen a little bit down to pick 69. So you're probably passing over this area completely. But if we had to differentiate between these three guys, which a lot of people do like, obviously, do you prefer Voit, Alonso, or Vladito, which I'm pretty sure Vlad's not on the table here?
Yeah, of these three, I think I like Alonso the most. I think Alonso is the guy I feel surest about in terms of just raw power. So he's not going to help you in stolen bases or batting average. So again, I'm probably not drafting him in this particular spot. But I think when you look at just, the simple, what does his projection give me? Do I believe it? And then what does that valuation look like? It's a really strong valuation. And so, I believe in the projection that he's getting. And let me just look at it really quickly right here. I want to say he's about a $20 player, if my memory is serving me correctly, Alonso. So Alonso is a $18 player. So he's ranked 60th, so right around his ADP, and that's according to ATC projections. So I like him. I like him a decent amount. I've seen him fall like in that mid 70s range. I think I might consider grabbing him there. But again, I just think the thing that differentiates guy at this spot is batting average or stolen bases, and neither one provides it. On Vlad Jr., I think I feel like I've talked about it on this program before, so I won't belabor the point. But my challenge with Vlad Jr. is that he has such a high ground ball rate, and he has always had such a high ground ball rate. And his projections really like him from a batting average perspective because I think they're still looking back at his minor league performance. And I think the thing that we need to recognize is that his minor league performance is an aberration because guys don't get the BABIPs that he got on ground balls in the major leagues because defenders are better, they're better positioned, they have more data in order to position themselves better. And the thing about Vlad is he does have great exit velo, like average exit velo, max exit velo. But when you look at exit velo where it actually matters in line drives and fly balls, he's not actually that high up there. And I'm not sure his swing is tailored for that. And so my major questions are just, can he get the ground ball rate down? And then if he gets the ground ball rate down, I mean, his career home run per fly ball rate is below league average. It's 13.7%. So it's not just a matter of hitting more fly balls, because that's also going to impact his batting average as well. And so I think he's in this kind of spot where if he starts hitting more fly balls, yes, the home runs will come, but I don't think the batting average will maybe come. So, and then if he continues doing what he's going to do, he's going to hit like 270 with maybe 25 home runs and decent counting stats because he's in the Blue Jays lineup, but it's not because he's Vlad Jr. And I joked around about them trading him. And the reason I said that is because, yes, he's got all this potential, and yes, he could become really, really great. But he is a DH only, as far as I'm concerned. He's not good in the field. And if he's DH only without any speed, and, you know, maybe good power, maybe not, I don't think that's a valuable profile. And so I think the hype around him at this point in his career is more valuable and potentially what you could get on the other end of it, versus if you wait a year or two and he continues to do what he's done, he's no different than, you know, how many other hitters in baseball who aren't great hitters and are like first base DH only profiles. And at that point in time, you have very little value that you're able to get from him. And hitting isn't a need that they have. They have no need for hitting at this point in time, right? They have a strong need for pitching. So if they could translate that into, just imagine like a Luis Castillo. I don't know if you could get Castillo for Vlad Jr., but that's just the example of kind of what I was saying. So that's a little bit there. I'll stop because nobody wants to hear me talk about it again. I think with Voit, I don't have a problem really with Voit, but again, it's just the profile. I don't believe in as much, and a little bit of injury last year, but I could see why he could be really good again. Again, he's going to be with the Rangers in the Yankees lineup. So overall, it's a group of fine guys, except for Vlad Jr. for me, but I probably won't draft them.
Yeah, I haven't found myself taking Vlad at all, but when it comes to Voit and Alonso, I'm finding myself liking Alonso more, except Voit, you know, the ADP at 69, but he's going as low as 94. And that's when it starts getting pretty attractive, when he starts creeping in the 80s or so. I start looking at him a little more because, you know, with these guys going on pick 60-ish, like Alonso's going, that's like you said, you get another bat. You got outfielders and middle infielders that are stealing bases for you. They're helping in all categories where these guys are not. So it comes down to, do you feel comfortable getting steals later? Did you go and get a big steal guy early, like a Tatis or something along those lines? It depends, but the way, you know, you're getting pitching early, I'm starting to get pitching early, you're probably not getting that stolen base comfort that you're going to want in the 4-5 area to go and take an Alonso or a Voit. My other problem is a first baseman I love a lot that I've talked about a ton on this show and other places, and he's going pick 182 over 100 picks later. Like, you look at the Bat X projections, Rhys Hoskins has very similar projections, if not slightly better, -5 home runs than Pete Alonso, and better than Luke Voit. I know projections are projections. It's not the end-all, be-all, but you can find similar profiles to an Alonso or a Voit. Like, if Alonso goes nuts, we know he can hit 50-plus homers. I don't see Hoskins hitting 50-plus homers. But Hoskins in the middle of that lineup, if things are clicking right, he can still produce pretty good, especially 120 picks later. And there's other arguments you can make for, you know, the safety of a Goldie or a Rizzo or Moustakas, even if he stays healthy. Like, there's guys that can play going later at first base that doesn't make me want to run and take these guys right now. So that's the dilemma.
It's such a great point, because when we talk about scarcity, it's not necessarily there's a scarcity of good first basemen. I mean, there kind of is, but it's also it's the scarcity of category that we talk about so often. And home runs aren't scarce. Like you mentioned, you just mentioned like 5 names of guys who aren't going to hit as many home runs as Alonso, but can provide similar production for a lot lower cost.
Yeah, it's you know, we've talked about it on previous shows. Like, when do you reach for guys? Well, in some of these early drafts, like, I circle Hoskins and maybe a couple other later first basemen, and once I see like one going, I know I have a ways to go to my pick, I start jumping. And I'm not going like 4 rounds early, but according to quote unquote ADP, I might be going a round early or something, which doesn't break my heart. And you know, I got a guy I feel comfortable placing every day. So, and then I'm gonna probably write about it, so I don't have to blabber about it for many more podcasts. But I know Hoskins looks like he's had some troubles, but if you look at the deeper numbers, they were very similar last year in the short sample to his very good seasons a couple years ago. So it was one of those deals. Maybe a full season might have straightened things out a little more. I don't know. I'm trying to stay optimistic when it comes to Hoskins at his draft price this year. The next group of guys we'll talk about, we kind of hit on them.
Can I just say something really quickly, Bubba?
Yeah.
I'm in draft right now, and my pick was in 2 picks. And the guy 2 picks in front of me took JT Realmuto in the 3rd round. I wore my Phillies hat today. He just signed as a free agent. I wore my Phillies hat specifically so that I could draft him while this podcast was happening, announce to the world that I drafted JT Realmuto with my Phillies hat on, with his new contract and everything else. And some guy just took him.
Well, I think I'm gonna have to buy a Phillies hat because now that you mention it, I think I have between Harper, McCutchen, Hoskins, Realmuto, and Wheeler. I have a lot of Phillies activity this year, so this might be an investment for the podcast. But the next crew we got here: Matty Olson, the 8th one off the board at pick 98, Goldschmidt at 102, and Rizzo at 104. It's we talked kind of Goldie and Rizzo before. To me, they really haven't moved a ton. Like they moved up a little bit, but they're still in that kind of 9-10 range of first baseman off the board. Olson's dropped a little bit, but when you look at those 3, how do you decipher that situation with about a month later now?
Yeah, I think Olson falls into the similar category of Alonso and Voit a little bit. I think the thing that concerns me about Olson is the batting average floor is lower than those other guys. And so, again, I don't know if there's anything particularly special for Olson. A lefty who pulls the ball a ton as well. It's hard to get that batting average up because, yeah, he hits decent amount of fly balls and line drives, but those ground balls are just going to get eaten up by the shift forever. And so I worry about that. I really like Goldie and Rizzo. Rizzo to a lesser extent, I think. I just think Goldie, I'm a little bit more confident that the skills are going to hold up. Don't see a lot of fall there, and I think he's in a good position, right? I assume he's going to bat cleanup now with Arenado in front of him, possibly DeYoung and Edman. So it's not a bad situation there. And I think he's due some positive regression from his last season where there really wasn't much given the skill at all, and yet he really didn't have much to show for himself in the power department. Rizzo, I think, is very solid, just the approach. Everything continues to be really solid. So I think they're both really stable profiles for me. I just think Rizzo, I have a little bit more question about the power. And I think from a stolen base perspective, they're fairly similar in what they might be able to give you there, and pretty similar in batting average as well. So I give a little bit of a boost to Goldie just because I worry less. That there's some erosion in the skills for him. I do like Rizzo as well. I've just found myself taking Goldie maybe a little bit more recently than Rizzo.
Yeah, when you look at the projections, they're pretty darn similar, but I like the setup for Goldie, like you mentioned. It's one of those instances when you look at roster resource and you'll be like, yeah, I don't think you got this one right. They have Goldie batting second and Carlson batting fourth. Like, I'd have Carlson and his OBP skills batting second to get on base and run in front of Arenado and Goldie. That's just me, but we'll see how that goes. Regardless, it's a much more improved lineup with Arenado. There's just the talks about last season, first season, the injury a little bit, just a lot of odd situations there for Goldie. The COVID situation with the Cardinals, like you name it, the Cardinals had it last year. So I'm with you on Goldie. It's a guy like he's not going to run like he used to. That's a given. But Rizzo's got back problems, and I'm not saying it's going to shut him down for the year, but you never know when those things are going to rile themselves up. So if they're going as close as they are in drafts, you got to lean Goldie to me. And then Olson, I'm always a big Olson fan. If you're one of those guys that likes an Alonso, you should like an Olson, because the best you're going to get is maybe a 255 average if you're lucky. And that's awesome. The power is legit. Like Toby said, he's going to ground out a lot, but he's going to hit a lot of home runs. His biggest thing, and I know Mike Curlin has put some info out on it, and some other guys, his swing and miss game is just bad right now, like really bad on fastballs and everything. So he's going to make some adjustments. We'll see how that goes. So yeah, we're on the same page here. Goldie, Rizzo, Olson. I got no problem if you want to go Rizzo over Goldie. It's really, really close. But that's the way I kind of select those two. All right. The next glob down, we drop down a little bit here. And it gets a little more interesting when we get to the 21st, 22nd, and 23rd first basemen off the board. And this is where the depth comes in we're talking about because, Hoskins was 19, Walsh was 20, but Miguel Sano, the 21st first baseman at pick 199. You got Christian Walker, like 199 and a half. And then Trey Mancini, 200. So they're all getting picked right next to each other. It's almost like people are drafting going, oh, crap, I need to get another guy. So there's just a run of first baseman. So you got Sano, Walker, Mancini. How do you go into these three?
I'm not super interested in Sano just because I think the batting average floor is so low. And when you're playing a lot of NFBC, that's just not something I think you want to take a risk in taking on. So, I can see the value. I could see where he could have that year that he's never had before, but I think the chances that he has a terrible average or he gets injured or, whatnot is equally, if not much greater than that, because that's kind of who we've seen. I think with Walker, the skills are very solid. I don't think there's anything spectacular there, but where he's going, I think he's generally solid and he should play every day and get an opportunity. And there's been some growth in certain skills. Like it's not very often that you find kind of some of the StatCast metric things that he's able to produce with the contact rate that he's also been able to produce recently. So, and there's a little bit of speed there too. So I do like Walker, although I have not found myself targeting him or drafting him at all. And then similarly, I think with Mancini, I know he's your Trey Boo-Boo. So, and I feel like I should probably have him because he's being discounted for an injury that, he had cancer. And so it's a question of whether he'll be able to regain that strength and the ability. It's not necessarily, one of those lingering issues per se, like a muscle or something like that you might worry about. Not that you're not worried about cancer, but so I don't know enough about the recovery there. I should probably do a little bit more research and figure it out because we know he's been absolutely excellent. He's going to play every day for the Orioles. It's a great park. It's a great situation for him. So maybe I should do a little bit more digging and just to try to figure out like what is the prognosis? Like how do we feel like his body's going to react? Because it seems like he's back, generally speaking. So you may know more info because I know you've done a deep dive on him recently.
Yeah, I'm in the process of an article on him, and I've been kind of reading some different deals, and every report points that he's good to go. He's been training. There's like little clips of him taking BP. The team is excited. They just said the other day they plan on him playing first base every day. Like that's what they're seeing. He said he's fully healthy and ready to go. It was one of those, like there's some stories that, the Orioles were not going to be contenders last year, but there were points towards the end of last year, like if they were desperate, he could have got himself up to like play like DH or something, which would have been dumb to begin with, just to push it during those COVID eras. Like it's already bad enough now that being as immunocompromised as he is, that's the biggest question mark I have. Like we talked about Carrasco last year. He made it work. Obviously we've talked about it with all these teams. If you're diligent, you can make this work. You have a lot of money. You have a lot of resources. It's not like you're having to fight it out in the crowds to risk, getting COVID and everything. So he should be okay in that regard. But
hopefully he gets the vaccine.
I would hope he already has it. But there's lists of people that should have it. If you had cancer, especially recently, you should probably have it right now. Just going to throw that out there. But that's not the case, unfortunately. As you know, dealing with your world and the things I've talked to certain people that I know, that's not the case. But it should be the case. So in this group, I like Mancini. This is one of those. In the last month, he's gone as high as 166, or as low as 166, I should say. If I shrunk this down, that's probably in the last couple of weeks as the news keeps coming out. I'm assuming he's going to be moving up this board because 23rd first baseman for Trey Boo-Boo is not right. If you look at his numbers for the last 3 years, he's improved in every category you pretty much want, like barrels, hard hits, ISO, WOBAs, ex-WOBAs, ex-WOBAcons. Like you just go down the list. His contact skills are a little above average in every facet. He's very, very good. He's a very good hitter in that ballpark. And it's a typical bad Orioles team that'll have a fun fantasy production offensively. Like it's going to be a good situation there. So Trey Boo is going to be moving up the board, and he's a guy that I have circled to start being a little more aggressive on with the news that's coming out. After that, I love Walker. I love the fact that you can get a few steals this late from a first baseman, but I'd rather Trey Mancini at this point. And then Miguel Sano, literally, I'll bring it back to Pete Alonso all over again. If you want Pete Alonso, you can wait and get Miguel Sano at 198. It's similar profile. Alonso plays a little bit better batting average if he's clicking right, and maybe better OBP as well. But Sano, power-wise, you're not going to find anybody better. He just can't stay on the field. That's his problem. So if Miguel Sano could play 140 games, he could play out home run Pete Alonso. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But give me Trey Boo in this range. Big fan of what I've looked into the last few weeks on him.
Hey, Bubba.
Yes. On the clock.
Breaking news.
Ooh, what do we got?
Nelson Cruz re-signs with the Twinkies. I was going to say Twins, and then I was going to say Twinkies, and re-signs with the Twins for 1 year. So there you go. You're not into it, huh?
My problem with that is because I was hoping when they signed Andrelton Simmons, you put either Polanco or Arias at second and third base. You move Donaldson to DH and let Sano play first. Now Arias most likely goes into utility because I'd imagine they play Polanco every day at second base because they've already said Polanco could be a goal-to second baseman. We know Donaldson gets hurt a lot. Miguel Sano, I just said, gets hurt a lot. So that'll all play itself out probably. But I like Cruz in Minnesota. Don't get me wrong. I think that's phenomenal. I'm just wondering how they're going to work these guys. Like Arias is a phenomenal, especially in DC's draft and holds average asset late. He just sits on the waiver or in the draft room forever. And you just eventually just pull the trigger on him. So curious to see how that plays out, but it's great for the Twins. It's a great baseball move. It's good fantasy-wise if you bought into Nelson Cruz. Like, does it move Cruz up at all for you? Because he was going – I can look it up. Top of my head, he was going around pick 100. He was going later than usual. Let me –
It's because he's toast.
Yeah, he's too old. And we've heard this story every season.
This is it. This is the year. This is the year, Bubba. I've already talked about it.
Over in the month of January, he was going at pick 109, as high as 80, as low as 139. So, like, that's got us, I'd imagine, to skyrocket almost. But what do you think on Nelly Cruz going back to the Twins?
Yeah, should I draft him at pick 38 right here?
I wouldn't skyrocket him that high.
No, I'm not really drafting him this year. I know everybody loves Nelly Cruz and he's going to go forever, but I think I've mentioned this in a previous, so again, won't belabor it because I know how everybody loves for me to belabor things like JT Realmuto, but obviously, short season aside, ground ball rate went up, swung and missed a lot more last year. That contact rate is down at 68% now. So I just think there's too much with like the health and everything that's going on. His max exit velo was down like 2.5 miles per hour as well. Still great. Barrel rate was still great. So I think he's good. I just think there's a lot of risk there. And I'm going to get criticism from everywhere for saying this, but I actually really don't like filling my util spot with a util guy, having been through that more so in DCs maybe, but it really does. It clogs the team and I'm not into it. I'm not into Nelly. I won't have any shares of Nelly this year. So I apologize for all of you who are Nelly fans out there. Please, I hope you continue listening to the podcast.
No, it makes sense. I've been a big Nelly guy, and I'm starting to kind of waver on, especially early in the drafts, like the Yordan Alvarez's of the world and stuff. Knowing you're sticking a utility guy right out the gate, it really messes with your draft flexibility in a big way. So it makes it tough. I wonder if this is 24, 36 hours after the MLPA basically said, no, we're not having the DH. And then he signs with Minnesota just like that. So
there goes your leverage.
Yeah, it makes me wonder. Yeah, makes me wonder how that one planned out. So we'll see how that goes. But keep an eye on Minnesota. Really, poor guy. But Josh Bell, he signed with the Washington Nationals a couple weeks ago. He slotted in the middle of that lineup, a lineup that it's slowly looking a little better. Still has a few holes. Wasn't what it once was. But you got Trey, you got Soto still, and then Castro's there and some other pieces. to the puzzle. Schwarber is in town now. The projections actually like Bell quite a bit. It makes me look at him going, like I was on Bell the year he went off, and then I've been afraid to touch him ever since. But like you look at the Bat X, 32 homers, 269, 88 homers, 94 RBIs, even a couple steals. I know ATC, he's always liked him. You know, he's got him a fewer homers, 28 homers compared to 32, but still a 262 average is not bad. When you look at Bell, he's going at pick 156 between Hosmer and Mountcastle. Do you have any interest in Josh Bell now he's leaving Pittsburgh, going to Washington?
Yeah, I actually drafted him for the first time in my last DC. I think if you look at him from last year, it's kind of a worst case scenario where the skills just fell off. They just totally fell off. He was god awful. He can't really play worse than that. And then when you look at the line, yeah, it was 226, but he still had 8 home runs, 22 runs, 22 RBI. None of those figures are good. But when you consider the context, he was inarguably, I guess you could figure it out, but like the worst lineup in all of baseball with the Pirates. You know, everybody was struggling. He really started off very poorly to begin with the contact rate. You know, over the first 30 games of the season, his contact rate was down at like 62%, his overall contact rate. So way down there. But then it rose back up to closer to his 3-year average. The ground ball rate was also up a lot. But I think these are things that you can fix, especially when you have all of spring training to work on them. I also think you have the StatCast metrics, which you can't really dispute in terms of, you know, a high max exit velo, you know, so there's that potential there that we know exists. He's going to be in a really good lineup. I think there will be renewed motivation. You know, that's obviously narrative and not analysis, but I do think there's something to that, right? I mean, he even said it leaving, like this is a new thing for him to be playing somewhere where the expectation is that you're going to win. And Nationals Park is a really sneaky hitter-friendly park. So I think he's got a lot going for him in that sense. And I think when you look at the projection, again, and you don't have to assume the projections are right, but I mean, a 262, ATC has him at 262, 28 home runs, 81 runs, 90 RBI. When you think about where he's going to be in that lineup, you know, he'll probably be hitting, I assume, 4th. You know, so probably what Trey Boo Boo batting 2nd, Soto batting 3rd, him batting 4th. Who am I missing that's going to be
Schwarber?
Schwarber more like a number 5 to me. I mean, you could move them all up. Turner 1, Soto 2. I mean, I wouldn't mind that at all. No. Either way, he's going to be in a lineup where he's got nice guys in front of him who get on base. And he's going to have a lot of opportunities for RBI, and then a decent middle of the lineup that can knock him into. So I dig him. I dig him. I don't know if I dig him enough to have him be one of my guys, but I like him.
Yeah, I'm starting to buy into him some more, and it's one of those deals like his numbers improved from 2019 with quality of contacts. You mentioned his contact skills. You look at his success versus different pitch types. He just can't hit an off-speed pitch to save his life. Curveballs, sliders, changeups. Like, it's just his X stats on those numbers last year were horrific. In 2019, they were pretty good. 2018, they were pretty good. He's always had a decent success. They were just off the charts horrible last year. So maybe it makes a few adjustments, maybe a different hitting coach sitting there with Juan Soto, who can pretty much hit anything. Just picking his brain might help. I think he's definitely in for a much better season. Does he come back to that guy we saw to start 2018? Probably not, but is he going to be very, very good? I think he'll be much better and definitely worth the draft pick, like you said. The last question I have here at the position, because we'll move the late round topics to the question part of the show, as there's a lot of listener questions regarding that. Rowdy Tellez, a guy I really liked. I'm pretty sure a guy I remember you liking as well. The Blue Jays have spent a lot of money since we talked about first base last time, Toby, and it looks like Rowdy Tellez potentially could be in a platoon situation, even though he should be on the strong side of it. He's gone as high as 196, as low as 341. His average draft position is 242 for January. What are you doing with Rowdy Tellez now? Because I was drafting him early in my last couple drafts. I have not even touched him.
Yeah, I haven't really touched him all draft season, to be honest with you. I think the Just the question mark about the plate appearances is a big one. Obviously, he's got some skills working with him, the high batting average, or I mean, not the high batting average, but the good contact skills coupled with some of the nice StatCast data, that he's been able to provide. But I just don't see him getting full-time plate appearances. And where he's going in drafts, I still see, I'm not necessarily targeting him around there. It's not necessarily the profile that I want to get. And so, it's just hard because you look at everything he did last year to be really good. And yeah, I guess it was good. And it wasn't a ton of plate appearances, but I guess it's fine. I guess he's just a guy where if he breaks out, then I miss it. But I just think there's too many question marks around what his role is, and not any skill that really jumps out as differentiating him at this particular draft cost. And I also like some of the first basemen going later more. So
yeah, what I'm looking to do is, if he keeps dropping, especially in their DCs, draft and holds, I'm going to start jumping back on him, because if you have the ability to, if you're comfortable, you already got maybe 3 first basemen or whatever, you're good in your corner infield, I don't mind grabbing him later, because there are going to be stretches where guys are hurt or whatnot, where he gets to run. We've seen it in the past, put 111 games, 2019, 21 homers at 277. That's a lot of production you could fill in there that you're not going to find, 21 home runs where he's going to be going late in the draft with that kind of he had 227 average. Sorry, misspoke there. But before that, 314, after that, 283. So 227, kind of an abnormality. But I'm a big fan of what he can do when he is on the field. Maybe Vlad, I'm not going to say he gets hurt, but maybe something happens there, or, there's a DH role that opens up where they make a trade. Like, I don't think they're done doing things yet. Even the projections, ATC's got him for 126 games. The Bats got him for 100 games. They both got him over 20 homers, hitting 250 to 260 basically. That'll play at some point throughout the season. So if he keeps dropping, I'm going to be much more intrigued. We're going around pick 340 now. I wouldn't be shocked if he drops closer to 400 here in the next couple of weeks. They don't make any moves. And that's when he becomes a little more attractive again. So I'm going to keep my eye on Tellez for sure.
Here's a question, just because I'm annoying like this. If you gave Tellez the same amount of plate appearances as Vlad Jr.,
Tellez outperforms him.
You think so?
I do.
Yeah.
Vlad might have a better batting average, but power production-wise, I'll say all 5 categories. Or at least the runs, homers, RBIs. Like I think he outproduces them.
Yeah, I mean, Rowdy Tellez has a 95.9 mile per hour exit velo on fly ball and line drives, which is 37th among players with 50 or more batted balls. And Vlad Jr. is 94.6, 90th.
Yeah, there's going to be some angry listeners based on that little discussion we just had there, but it's fun. It'll rile it up, because I think it's a good question. I think it brings to light what snags, I guess, you could get with Vladito. One of these years, I think Vlad's going to put it together, and it's going to be fun. I'm with you. I just probably won't have him when he does it. So we'll see. Let's head to the third base position, where J-Ram is still the top guy off the board around pick 11 to 12. He's gone as high as pick 5, as low as pick 21. Obviously, he is now no Lindor in town. They did pick up Eddie Rosario, which is a very nice addition. You will enjoy.
An upgrade, for sure. For sure, an upgrade on Lindor all around.
I just had a piece come out on him, and when I dove into that park and his swing and everything, I'm excited for Eddie Rosario, to tell you the truth. But
for sure.
What's your thoughts on Jose Ramirez? Are you still same old Jose to you, or are you concerned at all with Lindor out of town?
I think I'm fine with him. I think whatever he loses in what Lindor was able to provide in terms of setting the table for him, I think he may gain with a little bit more. I mean, not that he didn't had any issues stealing bases, but I think they're going to have to generate runs in a new way, be a little bit more aggressive. Maybe there's fewer RBI opportunities, but I think if he can do the 25-25 with 85 runs, 85 RBI, and the batting average, which will fluctuate from like, 260 to 290 or something like that. I think that's all good, and there's certainly upside there with what he could be able to provide. I think for him, he's just such a streaky player that you just hope he gets those 2 really hot streaks during the course of a season, and he doesn't start off a little bit slower. But I'm totally fine with getting him. I also think there's such a benefit to having him at third base. I think it gives you a lot of options roster construction wise. Just from the top, you make that pick, and as you're looking for, stolen bases, you don't have to be as reliant on the positions that we normally focus in on for that. So I really like J-Ram still. He doesn't really fall. He doesn't really fall in my mind, although you have to remember that I'm probably not picking him in the first round. I'd rather have one of the aces as opposed to him in that particular spot. But yeah,
I'm still fine with him. I took him at pick 12 in the Battle of the Pods League, so I'm not too. And that was after the Lindor trade, so I'm not too concerned there. And since then, they've signed Rosario, they've signed Cesar Hernandez. It's a really good OBP guy to go in front of him. So they're slowly putting pieces together that should make things at least decent for J-Ram. Just get on base, steal some bags, hit some homers. I'll be very, very happy with that. The other big move that took place that I guess the Rockies are giving away players now and money. Nolan Arenado to the Cardinals. He's currently the 4th third baseman off the board. He's gone as high as 24, as low as 50. I know there's discussions of him dropping more. For me, personally, I have him after Rendon, Devers, and Bregman, but I kind of had that before this trade. I like the overall skills of Rendon. I have Devers over all those guys. But what are your thoughts on Rendon? Like, is he falling a lot for you? Is he falling a little bit going to St. Louis?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm in that draft right now, and he went at the 2-3 turn. So I was kind of curious to see where he was going to end up. He went, I think, right. I think he went pick 30. It's a huge drop for me. I know everybody's talking about it, and it's not, there won't be I'm not really worried about the home away thing in Colorado, because I think guys have shown that they can still be successful, but he's going from potentially the best place, the best hitting environment in all of baseball, to one of the worst hitting environments in all of baseball in St. Louis. We've seen how that's impacted Goldie last year a little bit. Obviously, there was some bad luck involved there, but it's a cavernous place. And so I'm a little concerned about that. Obviously, the power plays anywhere. But when you look at his StatCast metrics, they've never been exciting, really. Or very good, honestly, for at least for an elite level hitter. The batting average is going to take a little bit of a tumble because he's moving from Coors outside of that. So I don't think that it's necessarily just the fact he's leaving Coors. I think it's also where he's going and what that means for his fantasy profile a little bit. I still think he's a good player, but I wouldn't be interested in drafting him kind of where he's going, because you're not getting speed, and for me the biggest impact is going to be the batting average, because Coors actually isn't a huge home run park, so you're kind of getting hit on the one thing that can really carry the profile for him, and so I'm going to pass, generally speaking. But
no, that's pretty much where I'm at. Like I said, I had him below those guys already. It's not a crazy drop from there because he's currently, pick 34, dropping him past Bregman takes him past pick 46. Now the question is, does Biggio pass him at 59? I still kind of want Arenado over Biggio. That's where it gets interesting. The next guy after Biggio is Moncada at 82. And then it's someone's going to take him before that happens. I'll probably take him. If you get him towards the end around 4 and around 5, where Biggio's going, I'll snag him up at that point. That's pretty appealing. Where does he have to fall for you to jump on board for Arenado?
Yeah, I won't draft him. He'll never get to me at a point. He'll never really get to me at a point where I'm going to be super interested in what I think he's going to give me, because it's I'm just not interested in him.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. The BatX, Derek Carty's stat projections that uses StatCast as well. 264, 34 homers, 87 runs, 99 RBIs, 2 steals. And he's already updated for that for the Cardinals. I'm not sure Ariel has or not yet, because it usually takes a day or two to do them afterwards for the ATC. But Ariel's actually much higher average, but lower in the other production categories. So still not a bad line, but yeah, it's a rough go for sure when it comes to Arenado.
I'm still upset at ATC because of how it sees Alex Bregman. ATC hates Alex Bregman.
And I know you like Alex Bregman.
I love him. Yeah, I'm flabbergasted, quite frankly. I'm just kidding, of course. I mean, I love ATC. Although if Ariel does listen to this, I do hope he'll explain to me Alex Bregman being ranked 78th overall, according to my evaluations.
That's pretty low for what you enjoy with Bregman. But speaking of Bregman, we have a group of guys. You have your Ramirez we talked about. Machado goes in round 2. But then you go into round 4-ish area. You have Rendon, Devers, Bregman, 5, 6, 7. We just talked about Arenado probably falls behind them. But pick 43, 44, 46. So they're all jumped together. It's kind of like, okay, this is the end of the kind of upper tier third basemen. Let's go get them now before they're all gone. You took Bregman at pick 47 in the Battle of the Pods League. With these three, how do you differentiate? You still Bregman over both of them, or what are you doing now?
I would go Devers, Bregman, Rendon, I think. I just think that I like Devers a lot. I think just as a package, I think him and Bregman are probably pretty similar in terms of speed. I think Devers, from a batting average perspective, I actually think I trust him a little bit more. Bregman's got a great batted ball profile, but he does hit a lot of fly balls. And so, he's never been kind of a guy who can get to that ceiling of say 300. At least I don't think he ever has, although that's just kind of an arbitrary mark. So I should probably look at it. But I just think Devers is a little bit more of a dynamic bat for me. So I think I prefer Devers to Bregman, but I like them both a lot. And I would love to get them in the 3rd or 4th round for either one of them. And then I think I have Rendon after that. And I think Rendon is solid, but the speed is disappearing a little bit. I don't know if he's going to get 0 stolen bases again. Remember, he had that oblique, and then I think he might have had a leg injury last year too. So I think he gets a little bit of stolen bases, and I think the batting average is solid. I think the home runs will be solid, and he'll be in a great environment with Trout right next to him. So I generally like all three of them, but in that order, I think I'd take Devers, Bregman, and then a little after that, Rendon for me.
Yeah, we have the same order. Like, I absolutely love Devers. I have him. I got him 3rd maybe as my 3rd baseman, right behind Ramirez and Machado. I think he's got the potential to be in the Ramirez discussion at some point in time. He won't steal as many bases as Ramirez, but I think when it comes to all the other categories, and I think he could steal 10 bags. Like, if he gets into 10 bags, you're sitting pretty where he's going in drafts. So I like Devers quite a bit. Bregman, I agree, should be bouncing back this year. But when it comes to Devers, you've talked about it before, and some others have. He's in the school of JD Martinez. Let's watch film, and he didn't get to watch film last year. So I think Devers is much more in play. Bregman should definitely bounce back. I'm team Astros are bouncing back this year, so that'll be fun to watch. And then the reason I'm high on Rendon, and I guess it's kind of similar to why I have him and Arenado kind of next to each other, is neither one's really going to steal, but they're going to be steady eddies when it comes to the other 4 categories. Arenado's still on a decent Cardinals team. Bregman on a pretty nice Angels lineup right now. I get that they built around him with Trout and company. So I think Bregman will he'll be healthy this year. He started last year, like you said, hurt. Like, he missed the first few games. Last year I kind of put as a wash. So I think Rendon really comes back in a nice way next year.
I mean, Bregman's 26. I don't see a reason why he would just fall off.
No, there's more to it, and it's one of those I wouldn't buy too much into that for sure. When we look at the next grouping, Yoan Moncada is the 9th third baseman, Eugenio Suarez the 10th third baseman, going to pick like 83 and 84 right next to each other, kind of the next big fall off point for third base guys. I've reached how much I love Yoan Moncada. Where do you stand in this grouping?
Yeah, I mean, I think I like Moncada more than Suarez, just because I think Moncada can contribute across the board. Suarez, last year again, I mean, we saw a drop off in the contact rate for the 2nd consecutive year, but he also had a 214 BABIP, which was driving the really low batting average, the 202. So again, the projection has him at like 245 for ATC. The bat has him at closer to like 255, 260. So, there's a lot of power there. There's a lot of RBI. The Reds aren't going to have a great lineup. He's 1 year older and he's not going to contribute in speed or batting average. So I'm a little hesitant there. I do think Moncada, I really should be higher on Moncada than I have been so far. I think I have him in 1 or 2 teams. But I really do think, there's no reason, again, he's super young. He's like Bregman. I think he's 26, 25. There's no reason why his growth should just stop like that. Outside of the COVID diagnosis. And he's already said that he's feeling better. He talked about it last year in the middle of the season, how he just never was able to get that energy back. And I think he has a lot to prove. So I'm hopeful that he's going to be really good. And I wish I had more of him. And I really should have more of him. And so maybe I'll have to do something about that.
Well, the good thing is you'll probably have about 20 more drafts to go. So you have time to make up for that.
He's ticking. I'm only having one going at a time. That's kind of my rule.
That's
Normally
good.
It takes about a week to get through each one. I've actually been good. I've only had multiple drafts going once, and that was because it was a scheduling snafu. I'm really excited for TGFBI to get started, though, like to have a real draft to do. I've kind of been itching to do maybe like an OC, kind of get the 12 teamers out of the way before I really focus in, because it's really hard to move from the 15 to the 12. Everything looks so bad in 15 when you've been in a 12 recently. So
yeah, those 12s, like after you've done some 15s, you're like, oh my goodness, I guess this is amazing. So yeah, I'm with you there. For me, it's Moncada, 100%. I've talked about it. I think the COVID's a big deal. Averages will always be questionable, but he hits the ball so hard. The BABIP's going to be what it is because of the way he hits the baseball. Power's there. He wants to run. I think he's just going to take a huge step forward this go around. I like the Bregman comparison, like comments you made there. I think he could put up similar numbers to Bregman personally. That's me. I might be speaking out of school there, but I wouldn't be shocked if by the end of the season we see a lot of similarities in their overall production. And then when it comes to Suarez, the thing I'll say with Suarez is you mentioned the BABIP situation last year, so his average won't be that bad, but it's never going to be great by any means, but it should be much better than it was last year. One thing for him, as long as he's in a Great American Small Park, he's going to hit a lot of home runs. That's just what he does there because he hits the ball the way he does. He's a guy that if you went pitching early and you took a couple chances to fill up other positions and you kind of feel weak on power, he's a guy going around this point in the draft, or I wouldn't mind taking a chance on to kind of up your home run situation. Because like you're getting towards like Nelson Cruz's of the world, where the next guy with 40-plus homer upside, Suarez offers you a lot more plus his third base. So that's where I think Suarez becomes an interesting discussion at that point for me, like a legit 40-plus home run type guy, which we talk home runs are scarce, are not scarce, but we're talking guys that hit 20, 25 homers. 40-plus, which Suarez can do, is kind of different at this point in the draft, and especially at a third base position that's tough to find. First base, like we talked about, much deeper in that regard. So that's where I could see people taking the chance on Suarez. Otherwise, it's Moncada for me, 100%. All right, the last comparison I have here, and it's a fun one because I think I know where we stand on this, but the 16th and 17th third baseman off the board, I pick 136 and pick 139, Chris Bryant, Ke'Bryan Hayes. Ke'Bryan Hayes is going as high as 106 in some drafts. Chris Bryant still doing his Chris Bryant thing. So are you Hayes over Bryant?
I don't know. I'm not really into either one, honestly. I haven't really considered drafting either one. There's a lot to like with Hayes, with Ke'Bryan Hayes. I think I would probably go with Hayes just because the profile, because of the stolen bases, maybe, because I'm not that into them. But I just think like over 100 plate appearances, anybody can do anything. So it doesn't really tell me kind of what a guy's going to give me and where he's going. I just haven't. He actually fell, I think, to like pick 150 or so in one of my drafts, and I didn't take him there. So I'm just not into either one of them really. But I might go with Bryant just because, he's done it before and, he's in a much better context. The Pirates are going to be dreadful.
Which means they'll never bench Hayes. No, I was kidding. But yeah, I'll go with Ke'Bryan Hayes because he gives you 10-plus stolen bases, 15-plus homers. If things click right, maybe 2015, which is pretty darn awesome this late at third base. The average, that's one thing he's done pretty well in the minors, hit for average. The power has slowly been developing. So I'll keep taking my chance on him. I talked to prospect guys that I really respect, and they have nothing but glowing things to say, and that's even kind of before he went bananas last year. So I'll go with the upside of Hayes at this point, where Bryant's got question marks. It could be one of those that bites me in the butt, because maybe it puts up that steady production we're used to from Chris Bryant when he's healthy. But give me Brian Hayes on the upside here. I haven't been able to get him in too many places, though, because there's some people that are way more excited about him than I am. So that's the problem. Like, I like him a lot, but some people are pushing him up in a big, big way. So it's pretty tricky there. All right, let's get into the listener questions, which will cover some of the later options and whatnot. But we have some good ones, as usual, from the crew. And we'll start it off with Mike Kurland himself, Mr. Sleepy K. Who's the biggest riser and faller for you at either corner infield spot? So who's the guy that's come up a long ways or fallen a long ways that kind of surprises you so far?
A big riser. I guess the riser for me right now would probably be Bell, maybe. A guy that I've drafted very high and has been a really big riser, and we don't think of him as a corner infielder, is Andres Jimenez. You know, I have some dread because he's on a few of my teams and I drafted him high, given kind of the context over there in Cleveland. But I think he can be a league winner if Jimenez, I drafted him, I think as early as like 139 or something like that. I just think he can be a real, I mean, the stolen bases, not necessarily hurting you too badly in power. And I think having a decent batting average, I think he could be a real huge asset. And I think he'll play the vast majority of the season. It's just a matter of whether he starts in the minors or not, just to delay a little bit. So those are the two guys that are jumping out at me as guys who maybe earlier in the draft season I wasn't interested in, but I have become interested in since the moves took place. So I think those are probably the guys.
Yeah, I'm with you on Jimenez. We could probably bring him up next week too at middle infield, but he's climbing up. There's still a lot of question marks for me, so I haven't been able to kind of pull the trigger on him. But I 100% agree as well. If we know he's like, when he first got traded, it was like, okay, he's going to hit towards the top of the order and play every day. Well, that'll shoot him up a draft board, folks. Because I'm with you. He literally, the steals upside that he brings to the table, it's like Mondesi style stuff that he's putting out there. So it's appealing. It's very appealing. But I'm concerned that they might not start him up there. So that's tricky. The fallers for me, I'll have two, and one we could talk about as well next week. Jake Cronenworth has fallen a ton since all the moves the Padres have made, where it seemed like he was the starting second baseman, and now they went and got Kim. They have Profar. They just keep adding guys, and they literally want to have all the depth in the world like they're the Los Angeles Dodgers. So it makes life a little difficult. So Cronenworth's one, and then we talked about Rowdy Tellez earlier. He's going to keep falling, I think. So those are two guys for me that I was much higher on about a month or so ago. Things have changed quite a bit on that landscape. All right. The next question we have for y'all here from Brian P. Vogel on Twitter. Baum, Hayes, or Bryant? Thanks. I told him it's like you almost read my outline, but we already kind of compared Hayes and Bryant. Does Alec Baum entering the mix change anything for you? Or Bohm? I always say Baum. I could be wrong.
No, not really. Again, it's these young guys who kind of come on the scene and in a smaller sample size do really well. You know, the 410 BABIP, obviously, the 53% ground ball rate. The StatCast metrics were really nice. I didn't realize how solid he was from a StatCast metrics
perspective.
It was
off the chart. It was crazy.
Yeah, but it's also like it's like one of these things where like he had a really high barrel rate, but he had a super high ground ball rate. And so the question is like, is that a skill he has? Because there are certain guys who don't need a high ground ball rate, but hit a ton of homers because their exit velocity on fly balls and line drives is really good. Let's actually check out what Bohm is. Yes, that doesn't jive at all to me. Like, I'd be really interested to see what Bohm's deserved barrel rate was. I don't have the pitch leaderboard in front of me, but what his deserved barrel rate was, because when he's 144th for guys who had 50 or more in exit velocity on fly balls and line drives. He has a super high ground ball rate. So it just tells me that I think he got lucky last year. But again, I mean, that doesn't mean he's necessarily bad, but I just, I'm just not interested in spending that high of a draft pick on a guy like him, really, at all. So none of those three guys interest me really at all. So it's kind of a sad question, Brian. I'd rather draft JT Realmuto.
I'd rather draft.
That was giving me a hard time about it.
Yeah, for me, it's still Hayes, but I'm trying to pull up Bomb's info. Like, I love the leaderboard, but man, this Tableau stuff, it can reload and load a lot. So I just clicked on his name. So, okay, here we go. We actually got somewhere. So you want deserved barrels for Alec Bohm? We're trying to load that page now. Man, it's going slow.
While you're doing that, I'm on the clock, Bubba.
Okay,
I've got a decision to make. Pick 38. Do I go with Tim Anderson or Xander Bogaerts?
I'm always Team Anderson, but there's some people that love Bogaerts these days.
I know Bogaerts is super lovable when you dive in. Actually, it's like a much more consistent profile, but the stolen bases are a little less. And I'm probably going to go with Anderson. I may regret it. I would love to unite Mookie and Xander. I mean, that would be kind of fun. Like get the gang back together, right?
Yeah, part of me feels like I need to start drafting some Xander because I feel like I'm going to miss out on something.
He's super solid, Like
good
and
floor
La Russa freaks me the hell out, honestly. Like with what he's going to do there, but I don't have any Anderson at all this year. I don't have any Anderson.
When you look at Alec Bohm, like 47% hard hit, basically a dynamic hard hit is 16.7, which is really good as well. 10.3% barrel, 7% deserved barrel, which is a little different. He had almost 63% poor contact, 35% ground ball rate, as you mentioned. I think he's a darn good ball player. He's young. We've seen guys develop. So it's just it's a tricky one. It's a very, very tricky one. But I go Brian in that situation. But yeah, it's one of those where I have not found myself anywhere there. That's the problem. Steve Brunn at Steve_Brunn on Twitter. Based on projections, Eugenio Suarez seems to be a bargain. Are you buying? We kind of hit on this a second ago, but assuming you're not buying.
I'm not really buying, not because I don't think there's going to be a comeback. I think the comeback will be there, but I'm just not in love with the profile necessarily. Again, a weakness I think is I'm so averse. If a guy, like the only guys I'll draft like that are catchers, like I'll draft Sal Perez like crazy, but I won't venture down that road with a position player, which, is kind of a fault. And I think, one of the things I think that I've been thinking about more recently is kind of like the error bars on guys and how earlier on in drafts, I think I've made mistakes in the past in drafting guys with maybe a little bit more volatility because they were so reliant on stolen bases or batting average for their value, and maybe trying to hone in a little bit more on guys that are consistently solid. So, maybe, but at this point in time, I'm not interested. But I do buy in that there will be some rebound. I don't think 2020 is who Suarez is at this point in time.
Yeah, I guess the way I said a second ago, I could see him as a value is if you're looking for a guy with 40-plus home run upside. There aren't a whole lot more as you get deeper in the draft like that. So I think that's some appeal for me. Otherwise, probably not going there just yet. Eric Samolsky at Samsky NYCS would love to hear your thoughts on full season of Bobby Dahlbeck and Ke'Bryan Hayes. Well, we talked about Ke'Bryan Hayes quite a bit. What's your thoughts on Bobby Dahlbeck? Because I am anti Bobby Dahlbeck.
Yeah, I just don't. It sounds like he's going to get regular first base opportunities, but my God, I mean, it's just an ugly, ugly profile. I mean, could not make contact at all. 56.5% overall contact rate, including in the zone. The hard hit metrics are off the chart, obviously, but so is a 44.4% home run per fly ball rate. So is a 394 BABIP. So when you do go with the projection of like 220 or 231, I actually think that might be a little high, honestly. There's not a lot you can do with that batting average that's going to interest me that much. He is going on later in drafts, so maybe if you need that power target who you think might get access to plate appearances on a consistent basis, then maybe you go with him. But there's other profiles that I think I'd rather grab even going that late in drafts.
Yeah, Dahlback's such a conundrum. Like, I loved playing him in DFS because he was like dirt minimum, and you didn't care if he struck out 3 times as long as he like homered the 1 time, so it didn't crush you like it would, consistently in season long type situations. Because when you look at his profile, it's like he hits the living daylights out of a pitch or he swings and misses. Like, it's 2 true outcomes for Bobby Dahlback, not 3. It's pretty crazy. You look at the pitch leaderboard: 44% hard hit rate, 29.3% dynamic hard hit rate, 19.5% blast rate. So like all these stats that just talk about how good a guy hits the ball, it's insane. He has a 22% barrel rate last year. When you look at deserved barrels, it was 10.9. So that should tell you a big oops right out the gate. It's like an 11% difference there. But still, he still had a lot of good production here. Only a 28% ground ball rate, so he's elevating the ball quite a bit. It's just, there's so much swing and miss. I'm not going there. I know that much. One last thing I want to mention: he had a 42.4% strikeout rate. His deserved strikeout rate was still 41%. That's still not good. Don't care how you break it down. Yeah. So it's pretty terrifying when it comes to Bobby Dahlback. I think he's fun. I think he's a DFS type guy to look at when you're stacking the Red Sox, because he will play almost every day. But for your fantasy team, it's tricky, very tricky. He also asks, why don't people respect Brandon Belt enough? An ADP above 300. Come on. I love it. I've been team Belt, I think, for as long as people have known me. So he's going to pick 335 in the month of January. What's your thoughts on Belt?
Yeah, Belt is a guy, I think I maybe only have one. I've only drafted him once. I like everything that Belt does a lot. I think the challenge is, he's in his age 32 season. He's going to be 33 this season, and he's never really put it together into a season that's super fantasy viable. I mean, arguably his best season ever is 2016, when he hit 275 with 17 home runs, 77 runs, and 82 RBI in 655 plate appearances. So it's like there's a lot of really nice skills there, but at the same time, he's never really been able to put it together consistently because of injuries and a variety of different things. And so I am a little concerned about that. That being said, I mean, there are some really nice things in the profile. Like, he makes a ton of contact. He walks a lot. When he hit the ball last year, he hit it hard. He actually had his max exit velo since 2015 this year. Highest exit velocity overall, highest barrel rate by a ton, hard hit rate by a ton. So there's a lot to like there. And I think there's also the possibility that he gets moved this season, and he would be fantastic in a lot of ballparks as a left-handed hitter. Unfortunately, not in San Francisco. But I like him. I mean, where you're drafting him, I think is great. I just haven't pulled the trigger yet. I'm normally drafting his teammate, Evan Longoria, at that spot, just because Longoria, there's a lot less depth at third base, I think, later on. And so I like his profile a little bit more. Yeah,
Longo's a great late round target, like you just mentioned. And Belt, I love. I'm not going to tell someone not to draft him because the price tag is great. He's going to be productive. Like, he's not going to have the year he had last year, just because at San Francisco, I assume eventually they're going to open those archways up so people can stand there and watch the game again, and that'll bring the ballpark back to what it was. He's still very, very good. You said something that I've said for years. In almost any other ballpark, he would be a stud. Like, I compare it to, if people that really remember the Giants, Nate Shearholtz was like a big prospect. Didn't do a ton. Left-handed right fielder. Goes to Wrigley Field, and next thing you know, he's a 20-plus home run guy. And it's just like you get him out of AT&T Park and magic happens. Shocker. But Belt's better than Nate Shearholtz. I'll say that much off the gate. And he's going to get for a decent average. OBP leagues, do not forget about Brandon Belt. He walks a ton. Like, he is a really nice late-round target. If you somehow missed on first base or corner infield, or you just want to bench bat, OBP leagues, he's phenomenal. So I think that's something to keep in mind. I hope he gets traded for his own good. Let him go experience some winning some more because he's already won a few times, so I can't use that excuse. But before it's all said and done, and go play in a ballpark where he can get 25 to 30 homers, which I think he really could do. So I'm with you. I think at that point in the draft, what do you have to lose if you need that position? But it just depends because there's not a lot of first basemen that late that are kind of worth that chance. At JW the Gamer asks, thoughts on Colin Moran? How deep does the league need to be for him to be more than a bench bat? More than a bench bat for to play every day on your fantasy team? Probably like at least a 20-team league for me. But
30-team NL only.
Yeah, he's going to pick 403 in the month of January. He's first base only now, so he lost third base, which I believe he had last year. It's a tough go for me. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, he's just a quintessential kind of small sample size guy for me. He hit 10 home runs last year, but it was on a 27.8% home run per fly ball rate. That's more than double his career average. Plate discipline isn't great. The contact is okay. Exit velocity was up last year. He did have his max exit velo as well, and his max barrel rate as well. But again, he had 17 barrels last year, even though he had a 56.3% ground ball rate, a 28.6% fly ball rate. So, it just doesn't seem like a sustainable start. He should play on the regular, just given how bad their team is. So, but I don't really want him in my lineup. I don't really want to rely on him. So NL only or something like that, where plate appearances are kind of king, I think works, but not super interested. I think he's going to fall back down.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Aaron R at AGRIEKE asks, who are some corner infielders excluding free agents who don't have current starting jobs, but you could see them being fantasy contributors by mid-season? Could be prospects coming up, potential opening via trade, too good to keep out of the lineup, etc. Any guys you're looking at? I usually try to draft guys that already have jobs, but if you're taking a gamble, say late in drafts, what are you thinking there?
So some guys that are jumping out. I mean, Edwin Rios. We have to figure out what the Dodgers' plan is for him. I know you're a big fan of his, but tremendous power. I haven't looked at roster research for the Dodgers recently, but I imagine they'll try to get him a decent chunk of plate appearances. So that's big. CJ Cron obviously doesn't have a place where he's playing yet, but you could easily see him re-upping with like the Tigers or, actually signing with Boston. That would actually make a ton of sense. I think,
Sorry, Dahlbeck.
for those guys. So those are some guys further down. I think Chad Pinder would be really interesting if Oakland ever gave him a starting job, on a regular basis and didn't just have him on the short side of the platoon. I think he could be really good. And then one of my favorites always is Brad Miller. So I don't think he'll get himself a starting job. I mean, he managed to with the Cardinals last year, a little bit unique circumstances. He's still unsigned, but he has been really good for 2 years now, just from a batted ball quality perspective, decent OBP. So he could find himself in the right situation. Like you could see him signing with, the Pirates or, some awful team, and ending up falling into 400, 500 plate appearances. And I think he'd be startable in 15-team leagues if he was playing every day in that scenario. So those are a couple guys that are jumping out to me just looking at the ADP list. How about you, Bubba?
Yeah, I love the Rios call. Like you said, I'm a big Rios fan. I've been terrified since day one that they're going to re-sign Justin Turner. And now Vlad Sedler is tweeting it, which means it's probably going to happen. I got his ear on the Dodgers pulse. So it just makes too much sense to go back to LA for Turner. But Rios would be great there. I mentioned Rowdy Tellez earlier. I really do think he has a point in the season where he's very, very good. So it's just tough to stash him. A couple other guys are young guys. Andrew Vaughn of the White Sox will play at some point this year and then start the rest of the season. Like that one will happen. It might not be in April. They might play the game, but he'll be up earlier than expected and he will play. So I think Andrew Vaughn is a very good one to take later. Pavin Smith of Arizona. He got a little cup of coffee last year. Decent power bat. It just kind of depends on if the NL had the DH, Smith might start the season with the team. So that's something to keep an eye on. And then Josh Fuentes in Colorado. Anybody in the Colorado lineup's fun. We saw Fuentes at times play really well last year, played well in the minors. Daniel Murphy retiring is pretty much, is Ian Desmond going to play first base or Josh Fuentes? So Fuentes is a guy to keep an eye on as well. All right, Todd Whitestone asks at Telestar7, if you have time, compare these 4 corners, considering their ADP. Rizzo at 107, Goldie 98, Moncada 84, Chapman 115. All 4 are projected to hit 250 to 270, produce 25 to 35 homers, but steal only 3 to 5 bases. Who would you rate first and second given ADP? So Rizzo at 107, these must be his ADPs or a different version. Rizzo at 107, Goldie 98, Moncada 84, Matt Chapman 115. Who's your top 2 there?
Probably Moncada and Goldie, I think, would be the guys. You know, just like straight up, I think those would be them. Value-wise, maybe Goldie, Moncada, like the other way around. Chapman does interest me because there was actually some really nice things going on in his profile last year, even though he had the really bad batting average. Some of the StatCast metrics were off the charts, and the ground ball rate was down, which were really, really good. And it's hard to know whether that's just the shortened season or whether those are the things that might be potentially sustainable. But that was super interesting to me. But again, I just think that profile is just so, you know, I'm like tired, like 250, 260, 25 to 30 home runs, you know, I don't know.
Yeah, for me, Moncada is definitely one of the top 2. Chapman has my appeal is because he does have the profile, or one of these years he's going to hit you 35 to 40. And it's going to get very exciting. Like all the projection systems, I just pulled them up. ATC 33 homers, the bat 35, Steamer 35. The average is never going to be great. But the power production he brings you is very, very intriguing. So I got Moncada 1. I'll take Chapman 2. You probably don't need 2 third basemen that early in your draft. But if you want to lock up corner infield and another third baseman, that's where I would go because I'll just go take Rhys Hoskins later at first base. But that's me. So give me Moncada and Chapman for those 2. All right, a couple more questions. Yancey, he has to just tug at my heartstrings. Talk about CJ Cron, is all he said. I don't know where he's at on his rehabilitation from his knee. I'd imagine he's fine. I think he's one of those guys waiting for the DH. I think you mentioned Boston as a great spot for him. I wouldn't be surprised if we see him sign a small deal again here pretty soon. He just never gets love. The dude can hit. He can rake. He's going to be fun. I just haven't been able to draft him because I really don't know where he's going to play. It might be one of those situations where he gets signed on a team that he's a platoon player or a backup, and then you're just screwed. So we'll see what happens. I love CJ Cron. I hope he gets an everyday spot. I loved him in Detroit last year batting 4th. So they can re-sign him if they like. But what's your thoughts on CJ Cron?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's solid. He's you know, a guy, you know, 260, 250, 25 home runs, 60 runs, 70 RBI. He's essentially like Vlad Jr., maybe a little bit lower batting average.
Yeah, that's a lot later in the draft. No, a lot more power.
I'm just kidding, of course, but yeah, I mean, I think he's solid. Like, I think he's a guy who, if he signs on, actually, he's a good answer to the question of who's going to move up. Mm-hmm. You know, if they sign or get playing time, CJ Cron would be a really good example of that because I think everything's fine. I mean, you do worry a little bit. He's never really been able to put together that full season, but
yeah, it's very true. Torres takes asks, which corner infielder going after pick 200 has the best chance of being a top 100 pick next year? So if you're looking through all the numbers, who you got?
After pick 200, that is most likely to be a top 100 pick next year. Andrew Vaughn is a good example.
That was my pick.
I think your pick. In your face, man.
If Edwin Rios plays every day, he could be there.
That could be him, yeah, for sure. One guy that I've been drafting a little bit is, I don't know about top 100, is Evan White of the Mariners. I like that a lot. Just because, you know,
he won't be as bad as he was last year when the swing and miss.
He won't be like it. Such bad contact has never really been a part of his profile before. And it just really was in a big way. But when he made contact, it was really excellent contact. He's got a really nice max exit velo. So everything's working for him and looks good except for the contact, but it just doesn't make sense given what he was supposed to be, I think. So I'm hoping that maybe it'll be him. One guy who's just right outside there is Austin Riley. I think Riley has a chance to hop up there too. How about you? I just stole all of them. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Vaughn was my pick. I like the Evan White call because I think we talked about him a lot in the first show. That you look at his overall peripherals and you look what he did in the minors. Like what he did last year was such a just like to me, fluke's not the right word, but it just feels fluky. But yeah, top 100 maybe not for White, but he's going to make a pretty high leap. Nate Lowe should make another high leap as well, I think, playing every day in Texas. That should be a good one. So those would be the kind of ones that stand out to me. I like Vaughn the most there. I'm trying to look at some other guys. I don't see too many massive jumps in this position. So I'll stick with Andrew Vaughn. I like Riley as well, but give me Andrew Vaughn, top 100 pick next season. The last question we have here, Edward J. Gillis asks, corner picks after 250. Who would you like out of these guys? Heimer Candelario, Carlos Santana, Will Castro, or Tommy LaStella? Who would you pick out of those four?
Carlos Santana would be my guy.
Yeah, 100%. Carlos Santana.
A little bit of concern about what the batting average floor could be, but he's going to play every day. He's in a great situation. He's still got great skills. There hasn't really been a deterioration there. So I have to go with him. And I think the thing is you're kind of hoping Heimer Candelario is able to get to the point where he can do what Carlos Santana has done for an extended period of time. So I guess those are probably the two most interesting. Although I think LaStella, depending on what the Giants have in store for him, because I think he'll probably platoon him. I think that's going to decrease some of his value. You could see him in like Wilmer Flores, just being second base platoon.
Yep, that's 100% agree. Like Candelario, I like what he did last year. I'm not saying he's not going to be good this year, but Santana, like you said, Candelario wants to be what Santana is. So take what the guy is at that point in the draft. Tommy LaStella, I'm concerned about the platoon issues. Will Castro is interesting to me. He should hit for an okay average, a little bit of power, a little bit of speed, but he's got a profile that I feel like you can get at some other places. So yeah, give me Carlos Santana as well. Hopefully he comes through because you and I like him quite a bit this year. So
yeah, I've got a bunch of them. One thing on Willie Castro, I think people are really overrating Castro quite a bit. Where is he going again? Remind me. I mean, it's hard to overrate somebody who's going, I guess, at pick like 250, but 250. He's young, so I can definitely see it. But he had a 448 BABIP last year. Very low hard hit rate, very bad O swing. The contact is fine, but still worse than league average. The exit velocity was awful at 85.4. The max exit velo was at 109.6, which is okay. The barrel rate was at 9.6%, but that doesn't really jive for me with I think he's another guy who probably the deserved barrels are probably way lower for him. Let's see what he did. I probably should have checked this first, but I always like doing this because it's a good kind of check on. Yeah, I mean, dude, this is nuts how low this is. Willie Castro has a exit velocity on fly balls and line drives of 89.1, which ranks 385th out of 437 batters. Going next to the likes of, shouldn't criticize Garrett Hampson, but Miles Straw, Jorge Polanco, another guy I like, so maybe this is bad. Mark Mathias, Starlin Castro, another guy I like. This is going wrong. I'll start picking and choosing better. Tim LaCastro, Josh Reddick, Hanser Alberto, Raimel Tapia, Tony Kemp, Billy Hamilton. So you just get a sense. I just think it was a mirage last year. There could still be growth, right? Because linear, development isn't linear. But I think he's an example of a small sample size. Small sample. Yeah. Sorry, MTM.
Small sample. Sorry, MTM. Yeah, when you look at, I pulled up his pitch leaderboard here. 30% CSW, not ideal. 31% whiff swing strike. 32% hard hit rate, 15% dynamic hard hit, 5.3% blast. Not horrible. 9.6% barrel, like you mentioned. His deserved barrel, waiting for it to load. It says 6.2. I thought it'd be even lower, honestly.
I did too, but I'm still going to take a victory on that one.
Yeah. 522 Woe Bacon, 461 X Woe Bacon. Still not bad, but it's just showing you that what he did, there's some step back on a lot of this stuff. I think he's interesting. I was kind of hoping he'd be like pick 350, then 250. But that's what makes him a little trickier to jump on. But with that being said, Toby, corner infield review in the books. Any final thoughts? I know we'll probably talk more corner infielders closer to draft season, but any final thoughts?
Well, I'm just pissed off I didn't get a chance to talk about Yuli Gurriel at all.
How much Yuli Gurriel do you have so far?
I have a lot of Yuli Gurriel so far. It's been fun. We kept it under an hour and a half, which I think may be a record for us. We're really trying, folks. We want to bring you hard-hitting content, but we also want it to be efficient. We want it to be effective. We want it to respect your time, because as the greatest listeners in all of fantasy sports, that is what our listeners deserve.
Exactly. The best, the easiest to comprehend, all that good stuff. And the longer we go, the less I can comprehend talking to anybody. So it just makes it more and more challenging. But no, this was good. I'm looking forward to middle infield next week, as we'll kind of talk about some of the moves that have taken place and the changing landscape of the middle infield position. But for now, episode 69 of Bubba and the BatFlip in the books. You can check out Toby on Twitter at BatFlipCrazy. I am on Twitter at BDintric. We'll be back with you guys next week. Have a good one.